It's no longer has it's got really like struggled legs all over the place, and you can see that when you look down at a membrane, you're going to see pinched red blood corpuscle.
Okay.
So we've got pictures of pinched red blood corpuscle,
Uh,
um, and then healthy red blood corpuscle to
yes.
show people the difference between the things.
Okay. So the red blood
Mm.
cells, like you so beautifully
Like a
put.
worker bee,
Okay.
yeah, they're going to be like a worker bee, and the nerve get a nerve cell, and get a blood corpuscle, very different, very different looking. You see, nerve cell, it's like really like a cell. It's like a star, versus a red blood corpuscle. It's a disc.
Right.
Mm. Okay, so we're going to get energy from the star, and it's going to go to the disk, and the disk is like the worker bee. She goes out. She's going to live for 4 weeks, and the queen is like the nerve, or sovereign in ourselves, representing I, and she lives for 4 years.
I see.
And so there's a bit of a difference in the consciousness between the two. But the
Mm.
high vista function is one, you see. And so the blood carries things like the worker bee does, and has a consciousness of this sort of, and we can explain that. But the nerve cell holds more onto everything. Yeah.
So incredible, Dr. Jubb. When I purchased your Life Colloid probiotic, I took like a clump of it and just stuck it in the top of my roof of my mouth and just let it dissolve. And I tell you, I don't know how to describe it, but I felt smarter. I felt, I was in a better mood. And
Oh yes, it's incredible because it's eye awareness. The substances that's there have a consciousness, and there are so many. There's 130,000 species, and they all have little coils. And those little coils, some of them preserved over 10,000 years, come from dinosaur and come from older life, including, let's see, pickled redwoods. You could see it in a
mm,
jar over 10,000 years. And, excuse me, what you and I we're aware of that sensation, and it's sort of who's living is aware, and that this awareness is held in the fourth dimension, in an ether that's below hydrogen, but solid. You know, it's stored in real time image and things, and can be drawn upon, and yeah. So this is a morphogenic field, which you can see when you look into things that has like a paramagnetic energy. Excuse
so
me.
is the structure of I was listening to something today about Victor Schauberger, and it reminded me what you said about how the fish is swum. It's not actually.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
are you talking about like kind of like the blueprint in the ether?
Yes, well, the blueprints to make an inverse gravitational craft, which was remote controlled, was reconstructed from the texts and things, which was from a library, from a university, which investigated different materials that's needed and how to make those. So, for instance, material that can withstand 10,000 degrees of heat and not have any heat itself. So sort of black body radiation and things that's like this. Um, and so just these were flowing, of course, in the 1600s and 1800s and things,
Oh,
in India. So, yes, the idea that an ether exists and a superconductive field exists, if people knew, and could explain just how one molecule could wake somebody up. And it's like strange. Well, how could one molecule wake you up? But in fact, it does. And even one molecule can, excuse me, have its effect broadcast. So it's a very broadcasted effect. And so it does this through superposition, which is faster than light, you see. So darkness is 10 zillionth as fast as light. It's gone, a meter in a second, you see. or an octillionth of a second if it's gone a mile. So it's extremely small, and that's a conductive field, which when anything goes out into the ether as a like a current, you could see it. It's in the A field, and it is being absorbed by the B field, which is space. When it gets absorbed, and that absorbedness is of a constant. It's down to 10 to the minus 71 centimeters if you go down that far, go down there, you see. So it's into a quadrillion of units in a light second, basically, sort of thing, if you go down far. But you've got a steady state field, which is where things are conducted. So when something goes out into space, it sort of goes out, but it's absorbed, in 10 zillionths of a second faster than it went out. And that is a constant, you see, yes? Like a base, like everything comes down to 10 to the minus 71 volts, for instance. It's another good example. But that conductive field, because your gel state is a phase of a colloid, and same with plasma, which somebody could be understanding plasma and have a doctorate in physics in plasma. But somebody could be aware more of I, which is the space we're talking about. So everything else is sort of very slow, and it's on this field. But that which is down there where this JC quantum is, it's held in the ether by the living. And so this is the witness of your nativity to come to be on earth. And was the witness, and that's your witness, basic sort of thing as you go through life. And this is I aware more, and it's how does somebody come in touch with what this is? But I think it could be thinking this is an unlimited self, of course, which is true. It's the only thing which is absolute, which that's true too. And this is I. And this is in the colloid, of course, where empty space exists within it. It's sort of like a small gradient, tiny, really little small gradient, yeah? It's the smallest gradient you could see. Let me see. And that's got a space inside it, Lukey, yes? That space is a cavity resonation.
Wow.
And that cavity resonance conducts, you see. So it doesn't matter about the distance. It's to do with the resonance, you see. And where something gets to jump across a space, it has to speak to the ether, and that ether is the B field, and the B field is picking this up and conducting it. And so, it sort of really explains why a reaction can take place where something doesn't get used up itself, because it organises through its resonance things which is to disassemble where enzymes are, for instance, like RNA, or to build things, right? So these are all things which is needed, like Hiden cultural protein and things like that, which has to come into the membrane. The brain of the cell is a membrane. And eye awareness is like really the queen, isn't it? In a hive, it's like the nurse, which she could live for 4 years and have greater consciousness and everything, and have quite a bit of a relation with the beekeeper, for instance, you could understand. And the worker bee she produces is like the red blood corpuscle, which is a platelet. It's just really going to live for 4 weeks or more or something. You could imagine that what within this period of time something of 4 years has a great consciousness about versus in the relation of something which is only going to be lasting like 4 weeks, where we are, where the queen bee is and the hive. And we're a hive, you see. It's sort of like a queen bee and the worker bees. And the worker bees are going out and they're collecting things and bringing things and what have you, and they help instruct nature as well around them. And there's like a life colloidal sort of consequence, which is, how much that the queen has capacity to, and she can emits a pheromone, and that pheromone regulates a hive to be within a certain capacity of size of itself, which it can grow to. And so that's what then that pheromone becomes less distinct because of all the interference. But it's an amazing thing that small things could pass through all that interference and still be not interfered with itself. And that's what this JC quanta is, you see. And that's I, which is empty. And then matter is like the colloid itself, which is a membrane. And so you or I, where we're commanding things, it's sort of like these colloid. If you take them under a microscope, you could look, and we could try to cut one with a diamond knife and things, but you can't. It's like trying to cut a bubble underwater. It won't cut. And everything that you do, it's just not possible to be able to get rid of it at all. It's sort of really got life eternal. And you and I have vicariously this where we are life eternal, because within the consciousness of all the living is an ether imprint of what's historical to sort of a record of things, relative to help where function is, where DNA is like a library, and it comes from a red blood corpuscle, and that all the body cells come from a red blood corpuscle, and then everything is produced from life colloid transmutation, providing the terrain is good. But then you could see like where someone is and how calm someone is, and the world itself in a common law mode. Otherwise, it could be frazzled, couldn't it? And you've got life colloid tension in the terrain. And a story could be that you could think about would be the miracle of matter. And what's the matter? And so Jubb cell rejuvenation really focuses on getting rid of toxin outright. That's it, finished. And then bringing a nutrient in, which is most superior antioxidants to help on an atomic micronutrient. Have you ever heard of that, mate?
An atomic micronutrient. Dr. Jubb, you say the most amazing things. I've never heard of that, but there was one thing that I just wanted to make sure that I got correct. If you could go back maybe a minute.
Yeah.
So, when you're saying the witness, are we talking about kind of like a pinprick where existence is kind of like coming over this gradient that you're talking about, a negative gradient, and we're like reading out this consciousness through that negative was it a vacuum gradient? I forgot the terminology you used.
Well, the space is the only thing which is absolute, and this has a JC quanta in it. We're talking about you're going down to 10 to the minus 71 centimeters squared cubed, and then down there you've got a constant which everything is connected, you see, because it's a very fine substance which connects everything in a string. If you go around in like a circle, which if you look at that, you've travelled, so you've never gone in a circle per se, but you've gone in a bit of a corkscrew, which seems to, and that corkscrew motion, if you looked at it from above, it might look like a circle, but in fact, if you look at it on the side, you can see that it's a corkscrew. If you look far away, it could look like a straight line to you. A shape exists down there which is called a jubbit because it's not a cubit. A cube can't do that. A triovoid shape does, which that's what this shape is, and it's got a 71-degree angle, and it sort of really fits into a 351-degree circle where you've got 26 divisions in that, and it sort of like pops it, so you don't have any space existing. So if you imagine that you got rid of all light, and so all it was just black, well, that's what this is, you see, yeah? Wow. It's how do you make that, you see, like Van der Black, yeah? And would you have something that's like this? It's a void, it sure is. It's massive, it's like drawing you in, and this is the void really around us, if we could know this, you see. And if we don't, then we're not necessarily taking proper risk per se, and things are calculated. And this is like the queen, she's having an understanding of the with the beekeeper, and she can have an awareness over all. and the worker bee, you could see this only living for 4 weeks, sort of really got a bit of an understanding about things. So this is like the blood, our blood, and the nerve cells like a queen, and we're a species of wormman. That's our species. So we're not kangaroos or koalas or something that's like this, or deer or flow buffs. But and so our surfactant is so different, it's so unique, it's sort of really a signature. But the surfactants that we have is pretty similar to a koala bear's and a whale or a daisy, but so unique, it's incredible. You see, there's some quite similarities where things are, but it's so unique, it's radical, matter of fact. And so you and I, we've only evolved about how things that more or less came from the fruit of a flower, or the body of a flower, which is a fruit. So a seed, a nut, and broccoli and cauliflower, all these things qualify as food. So, and then, you add a bit of root and some things in there, root and leaf. But enzyme-resistant material, which is sediment, totally is destructive to the body. And so the Jubb cell rejuvenation is just reducing the amount of what that is relative to be more modest. And the life colloidal consequence of things where eye awareness is more, where emptiness is no biases, and so you've got more body reception and getting feedback. If somebody just has a little bit of product, suddenly they have more carbon coming to their brain, and that's so amazing. Why? Well, because it relaxes the smooth muscle locally and causes dilation and opens everything up more. And so, most people really want more circulation and things just like that, and that's what this product does, like immediately, more or less, you see. So a product could be made just like an instant, which we've done, which can get rid of the toothache just in an instant and help build it up, matter of fact, and seal it up relative before. And so it's sort of like what your appetite does in your saliva. But when you're frazzled in life colloid environments, you could see that a wet mouth, which is usual, could suddenly be like a desert. And it's a miracle where matter is, you see, because Jubb cell rejuvenation is a focus on eye awareness and atomic, coming back to that micronutrient, because like on a JC quantity, you can kind of tell if an atom is too much, you see. And so, nutrient has to be on an atomic micronutrient level, meaning it's going to be micronized. So it's got to get really, really, really in there, It's got to pass through 3 membranes, see? You can see that. And that has to travel up into the brain. And most of these things are all aromatic, which we'll come to a bit, because it's aromatic amino acid that transports all copper and zinc and all these sort of minerals and everything. It's sort of mostly, those are things which is dead when people eat food. So the enzymatic conditioning of something which is not a nutrient really, because you've got enzyme resistance and it's been cooked out and there's nothing left there. But what's the mutual lived assistance where eye awareness is over the top of where all this is, like we're talking about, and how does that impact everything sort of more below? A fineness can exist for sure, you see, yes? And people could search and discover, that we've got a mother molecule in our body sort of thing. But otherwise, life is engaging more a confluence, meaning a vibration that harmonizes everything together. That's called a confluent vibration. And without that confluent vibration where things are, sure, you've got to go cold, wet, acid sort of stone forming type of a condition where psychocryogenic types of life colloid form when the core temperature could have dropped, 2, 3, 4 degrees, not much, matter of fact. And overall, like if you look at the Jubb bone, it might be at 51 degrees down there or 42 degrees, like, wow, 51 degrees down there, but it's got to be, 98.6 degrees, typical quantifier in the blood. And so for it to be able to have a quanta on a JC quanta level, to be able to superposition itself where it does, it's perfect in a quanta at that level of temperature, which is able to keep its own potassium inside itself. But anyway, let me think.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to just say one thing, and then you only could just say that people were very annoyed at me for saying these things, because most people that I talk with, that professional people and stuff, can know that you're going to have to look down and find it's really smaller than a pinprick, right? You've got to go to the edge of a pin. That's pretty small, like a pinprick. Excuse me. You've got to go down there, and now down there, it's so small, isn't it? But you've got 6 feet of DNA. And so,
Wow.
for most people, they're upset with anybody who thinks they could get in there. You see what I mean? You've got 6 feet of DNA, and it's like down there, and it's very small. Pinprick, because you can't see with the naked eye. Some people's vision could see, average, maybe 480 nanometer, which is huge, to about 700 nanometer, so you've got things far smaller, of course. If you've only got visible light that you can illuminate something for your eye, how's that going to work? You have to, could be that you've to have made a wavelength so small that it can illuminate the smaller particle, yes? And that's what these sophisticated microscopes have done, and things which I've been involved with since more, so that you could illuminate things really small and have quite incredible resonant contrast and things with things that you could see, and things are sort of more living versus most everything else is a microscope, sort of pretty much sort of killed everything underneath it. Are you there, mate?
I always find it amazing.
Yeah, my phone's going off. Okay, sorry. My phone's going off, but go ahead.
I'm amazed how you've looked under the microscope. You've seen what happens in the body, and then you can hear, like over the phone, exactly what's going on inside.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you could listen and hear everything because you've got echolocation and this sort of thing. But novel equations in astrophysics and things caused me to see there was a surfactant, and it was just me looking at how the universe, our universe, slips around Boody's void, and the mass of the two, in relation of the two. Something stunning was to me. I just was shocked, and I wondered, could ratios like that be found microscopic, like in trees and things just like that? And I was amazed. I saw that the surfactant, and matter of fact, that constant was where that slip, stick, and bulk was, where the universe slips around Boody's void, and a skin of slippedness exists between the bulk and the very inner center there, sort of thing. But a center, could you say that nobody could know where their center is because everywhere is their center? That's something else which is called understanding more frame draggedness effect. So, for instance, if you were on a balloon and it was filled up, and you were just on a spot on that balloon, and then it was let go, it would just go all over the place. You could see it go, all over the air. But if you were standing on the dot, you'd only see a straight line from where you went, you see? There'd be no reference point except a straight line out from where you'd come, even though when we observed you, you would have gone like radically all over the place, yes? So it's life engaging ever more, a confluence of vibration, and where people are, that life colloid terrain is, and that cold, wet, acid sort of stone formicness exists where the pancreas is in the brain and other places, and other than allows proper microcirculation, and product like vitamin L can target deliver things because a resonant magnophoresis is in a small number of 9, the number 9. It's like quite good because carbon. These number 9s are, and they fit over the small, very small, of course, over the membrane, and they make it instantly by its resonance, north negative underneath in the membrane, and it's magnophoretic or magneton particle, which are pulls toward itself, a free-flowing condition that exists, the structure that's there, which is in the third dimension. We're talking about it pulling things like a flow of plasma which is the wind that the ancient ones talked about we have within ourselves. And you've got a natural magnetophoresis, which causes hydrogen to slip off oxygen. It quickly slips off it, and it gets pulled into the membrane like Mickey or Minnie's ears, and at the head of Minnie or Mickey is really oxygen, and hydrogen is the ears, and it just like slips them off and pulls them into the membrane. And that activates the membrane, and this activates a membrane for every single function that goes on. And that's a surfactant that everybody, all species has, but each species has a very unique surfactant, and that is a problem for our species because we'll be consuming surfactant from other species and stuff that's like that. And this is one of the greatest molecules of death that anybody ever thought about or looked at, you see. No question about it. But so natural orthophilic nutrient is you and I not necessarily really living in any frazzled sort of circumstance, but a natural orthophilic nutrient. Orthophilic means it's amphiphilic, amphoteric, and it has permittivity. Amphiphilic is its capacity to mix with oil, resin, tar, and water. And amphoteric is it can slip through things, and it has a capacity to be polar neutral, and then it could become whatever it needs to be by organising groups of itself within itself to polarize to what needs to be. And so these are things which is enzymatic and got various sorts of properties in magnicity which cause a red blood corpuscle to be able to have been kept discrete from other red blood corpuscle by having a tension and that tiny little small cages that cause the red blood corpuscle to sort of be kept apart. And life hydrate is designed to do this. It sort of brings out the surface tension and causes a small amount of it instantly for all red blood corpuscles to be apart. And so you've got a great surface exchange more. Like you've got down there on a level, you've got life colloid, which are magnetophoretic and in their surfactant, like we're talking about, and only that it activates a membrane like an immune cell or anything, in fact. And zeta magnetonics, like we were just talking a bit, is really like in the formula. Somebody could understand these things. It's sort of really like a sixth generation product where something is designed so it's got all its stereoscopics and it's put on tiny little platforms called syringisine ceramide so it could be absorbed across the tongue and get straight away into the blood and things. So these are sort of more sixth generation sort of nutrients, but osmolytic property. And osmolytics really is just diffusion and it just passes straight through the membrane. And so you've got to really be able to think about things like that because that's actually what nutrient is, yes? And where do you get it from? Like aero life colloid, from things where you've got cells which truly are open to all the gases and everything that you exchange. And there's a massive amount of aero life colloid in the air where fresh air is, of course, and there's 60 to 70, 80% of something of all zinc and copper and rhodium and osmium and ruthenium and these noble elements and everything really comes through fragrant amino acids. And fragrance is a way for that to come up into the brain. It passes so easy and you must have those things to help functioning. And so most of that sort of all cooked away. But there's a magneton astral conditioning which really is to do more with how it passes through the stars to come to us in our brain. And so taurine, which is an amino acid, and tyrosine and these things, which is the same as a DMT molecule has within it. And most of the molecules of our body lot have this structure, which, especially for neurotransmitters, which pass through the heavens and conditioned by these stars and cause the structure of these amino acids to have a similar structure to make up a neurotransmitter and things. And I saw these things was found in trees and stuff, and I saw how fine and small they were and how light they were, and suddenly it just dawned upon me, especially the weight. I saw the mass of this, the mass of that, and I saw a ratio that existed, and suddenly quite a bit came to me. I saw life hydrate. I saw this because a surfactant exists in space, in physics, and could that exist in like on a microscopic level. And sure enough, that's what I did. I found this in trees and everything. So copying the stars as a copy of things which is in heaven here on Earth, which is a space between two children playing. And it's really, have you ever heard about how a parasite could have got people taken over?
Oh yeah, yeah. It tries to recycle them quicker.
So you can imagine that you've got lots of ants, and imagine they all sleep and they have peace and what have you. But let's say Mary and Ralph and Pasquale and Vinny and Jane, they all take off in the night and they go to moon the stars, to moon the moon. And when they come back in the morning, it's been hard for them because they had to hold on with their mandibles through the night, and all the other ants are all taken off already working, and they're coming in a bit tired, but off they go. They have a bit of a story to tell, which they tell all day. The other ants are just listening to the story, but it's sort of like a background. But they're telling the other ants, hey, look, this is really good, this mooning stuff. It's like great. And that's what they would do every night until the parasite that drove them to have the habit of that found its way itself. It parked the body of those ants always through the night. In the morning, it could come to be in the ruminant of a moose, which it had to come in back into the stomach of a moose or a grazing animal. And so it selected and did what it could to cause the changedness of the ant by cementing various bits of the ant's brain so that a hard wiring occurred more for its own self to navigate and cause the ant to be positioned in such a way that the parasite that was within the ant could find its way back into the ruminant of an animal where it could then go through its cycle. You see, yeah?
Wow. I was ate a lot of, kind of ruminant animal products, I guess, with the cheese and stuff. I probably got some of those parasites.
Well, everyone has fluke-worms. That's part of our program, which we do, where people go through a program for a moment and they flush fluke-worm out, because otherwise none of those things ever get flushed out, honest. And then also to the stone that we're talking about in the beginning, it's sort of none of that gets dissolved either. So in terms of cell rejuvenation, you've got radiant wet sauna and things that's like that helps improve microcirculation to get rid of all the toxin which is in the bed of the gliaxal, and which is tiny little threads which is in the capillary beds, which have a sphincter around them, which is smooth muscle. And when you take the product, it causes carbon to be released, and it causes hydrogen to be released, and it relaxes all these smooth muscles like radical. And it's a local effect which doesn't even impact blood pressure. It completely has a localized effect to normalize microcirculation. So you've got substances of tocotrienols which are so unbelievably powerful, they don't ever get used up themselves, and they'll reactivate every other single antioxidant, like delta tocotrienols, alpha and beta and delta tocotrienols. And so tocopherol itself, you've got substances which are, believe it or not, 4,000 times more powerful than vitamin E, yeah? And so these things you find in drought-resistant sorts of plant and things like that. And so in a sixth generation, somebody's compounding, they're thinking about things just like this. How do you make a tiny small cage that absolutely has exactly like what nature has? And you don't want to alter or change any of it because, you're providing something which nature comes from nature. And so it's in a whole food, vitamin, mineral complex state. And so nothing is being heated and nothing has lost its three-dimensional shape whatsoever, but it's been brought into a condition which could easily be absorbed. So what's vaporized, where people are and getting quite a bit of nutrition from it, and now people are seeing how much nutrition is in that. You're getting a lot of nutrition, vitamin C and all these esters and everything, which protected lungs through the 70s. And people who did that, they didn't die of lung disease like others perished. And so there were protectants from people from tobacco, for instance, that helped protect everybody. And they didn't die of asbestos, but lots of people did die of asbestos, many. But it's interesting that people who smoke Marlboro, and they only just looked at tobacco, they didn't think about anything else, was surprised to see how much that they had protected all these people that were working with those products, like cutting into asbestos and copper impregnated woods and things. But also when sniffers were used, and sniffers are used in the home, you can find asbestos, massive, and formaldehyde, and creosote, and all sorts of phthalate and benzopyrene types of molecules, aromatic hydrocarbon and things in the home, and those things all add up over time. Yeah, does it make sense?
Oh, absolutely, Dr. Jubb. I just want to thank you so much for everything that you do. The products are amazing, and I guess I got like the old last year's model with the Life Colloid. Now the Life Hydrate, is that the atomic one?
Everything is an atomic nutrient because you've got to bring things down to its level of below the level of hydrogen. So people could think of a proton, and then you've got to say, well, what is a proton made of, you see? And so this now you've entered into a level of atomic nutrient. You've entered into a level of how do you make things and how does your body make things. So like one job I had was just to look to see if a red blood corpuscle was in an egg or not, because then I could tell my dad that this was a fertile egg, whereas this one wasn't a fertile egg. And that was interesting to him and the family. And I would hold them up to the light to see and find where the red blood corpuscle was there in the egg. But it never was for me to have a conversation with anybody. It was only just that I saw that from a red blood corpuscle everything formed. Later on I would see by studying other people's work, in fact this is so, and that how all of our cells arise as a result of a red blood corpuscle aggregating, fusing and differentiating, and a tiny small colloid of life aggregating into a life colloid as spore and double spore, and that being a building block of every single organelle internal of the cell. And that I saw that the vast majority of everything that people had was a way more DNA than it was beyond the cell of our body. And suddenly it dawned upon me that could it be that in fact parasite and things and such, and that your consciousness, my consciousness is something which our consciousness is what we have. But what's the reason why various whole range of behaviours exist and things that's like that? Because in fact something is getting rewarded for where it is, but it may be not good for the whole. You see, yes? And so these products cause you to have superconduction, cause you to be more superconducted, gives you capacity to open up reservoirs where light floods into corridors and opens everything up and illuminates bits of the furniture with theories that you could never have seen before. Or a brand new idea comes in, just a flash. Suddenly you could see something truly incredible. You could see actually a new way to live or an environment that people lived in and things, and sort of suddenly it gives you insight, or you just see something, it's just so small, isn't it? It's insignificant, but it is massive when you amplify what that is as an effect. Product and things that they knew they could give some of this manna to people, but they saw that it cost a lot for them, take time to do. Small amounts is all that needed, but a time would be. But what attention would be when nothing could exist, that people just had everything which was in front of them, but where things weren't. In the time of the Exodus, there's times which people do talk and write about manna, and they do talk and write about various things that happened. But it was a time, of course, in the heavens where sweet things did fall, because it was like going through the tail of Venus. Before Venus's tail got knocked off, it was a comet. But we would pass through that when we did, there were times which was calamitous to us, because we would be passing through the tail of that comet, Venus's comet, when it was a comet. when it was ejected from Jupiter, and during the time period of that, all in the heavens, it's listed as a comet until it loses its tail. It loses its tail by brushing up with Mars and leaving Mars burned out, and Venus pretty hot, and took Venus some time to get into the orbit it did. And during periods of time like that, we've had various effects that have terraformed the Earth and stuff. But this could be another story where we are, where things are. I think what we've been doing is exploring the terrain that's below the level of a cell, and we've realised that there's a big vast space that's there. People were annoyed a bit because I was just looking at a pinprick and realising that I have to understand there's 6 feet of DNA there, and how does that all get serviced? And so ubiquitin molecule is what I found, and it's life colloid, ubiquitin life colloid, 1, 2, and 3, and how do they use their magnicity to be able to tractor and bring things, to put them into space, to put them into repair things. It's like you've got hands, but they're invisible, you see? Moving and guiding things to put them things in place, but it's magnetic. But anyway, so that's another story, I guess, a little. But I guess we'll be describing, we have an inner terrain, and if somebody lives simply, others can simply live, and there's you and I, we have every cell is sort of like Mexico City, which you look down, you can see everybody's moving and flowing and things just like this. And it seems to be a one entity when you pull back away from it. But when down deep you look and you see quite a world is going on below. And I think some people could have considered the things to be like this, but that's like a great truth if we could harness and understand this, because it's very, all of us living in a one grand unified totality called gut. So if you got the mind, you can mind the gut, and we definitely need to mind the gut, because if you mind the gut, you're going to be able to have gutted your mind better. So anyway, all right, mate.
Oh, beauty, mate. So I don't know how you want to progress with this. I have um, a monetized YouTube channel. I have a Shopify and I have a TikTok shop that I'm getting up. Um, Now the life colloid, I'm not sure how we would source that, but I could definitely offer. Is there like a base life hydrate that you offer? Because I know there's
Oh, I'm
different
going to do
versions.
what I can to help. I've been organising things to grow and get set up. And so those are things which off the air and not
Okay.
for everybody to hear
Okay.
what
Sounds
goes
good.
on where that is, because it's just something else,
Okay.
personal, private,
Okay.
which could be not to do with the subject of the scientific debate we've been
Okay.
having.
My bad. Because
But
I
we're
have,
talking about a lot of things. But
yes,
yeah,
I have the
but
rose of the desert.
oh, we should talk tomorrow a
Okay.
little bit, you and I, and so we could see what I could let you know what we're doing to help hook things up, to help support,
All right. No
yeah,
problem.
to help support the everything.
Okay.
That's right.
I just want
Yeah.
to help out as much as I can, David. You've done so much for me
Oh,
and everybody.
we've got like a couple hundred product that's made, which I'm going to put up on the site, so people could see what those are, and
Oh, beauty.
I'm doing what I can quickly to reproduce and to get everything underway, and that is also care for. At the moment, the program and things which wisely people should learn more about, because habits and things which we do, we could be modifying that, especially the high phosphate and high methionine amino acid that people consume, and they could look at the value of what live food is, because some start to appreciate what the condition of what this is. And 1%, 2%, what you do with what this knowledge is great, really good, because every percentage you have more toward what the whole picture is, the better everything is. That's right.
Oh,
But
sounds
anyway,
good
so
to me, mate.
yeah, love you, mate.
Okay,
We'll
thank you so
we'll
much.
chat
Looking
tomorrow.
forward to next time.
Love you, mate.
Okay,
Okay,
goodbye.
mate. Love you.